Hey, Jim Bergman here with measureQuick, day before Thanksgiving 2019. Thought I'd show you guys a new feature that we've been working on the last couple of weeks. It was pretty interesting. We got to ride, one of our customers has about 500 service technicians, a larger mechanical, and they get guys all different skill levels, from 20 years to first year in there. And riding with some of the younger guys, I realized right away that measureQuick was not for everybody, because it simply expected you to have some levels of knowledge about what was going on in the system. And I realized, I really built this for a guy like me that has a lot of experience and was, knew what they were looking at, and it's really cool. But I figured out right away we needed to do something different. So we're introducing a new mode in measureQuick called the AC Vitals mode. And obviously, like right now, I'm in the regular measureQuick mode. And if you tap through this, you obviously can go to your trending, but then you'll tap it again and you get it into what's called a quick charge mode or vitals mode. And in this mode, what it allows us to do is allows our air conditioner to shut off just randomly. And it's going to take 2 minutes for it to start back up again, of course. It always works when you're doing this thing live. And but what it does in the AC Vitals mode is you configure it for the way the system is set up. So right now I have it set up for a TXV. We can set up for any of the metering devices there. But you select your metering device, your airflow, and it looks at these core measurements, which are either subcooling or superheat, supply air temperature, low pressure, superheat approach, and high pressure. And these are what we consider the vitals for an air conditioning system. So this is basically measureQuick reduced to one page. If you get these things correct, then the rest of everything we do will fall in correctly. Obviously, if we select this as a, let's say a piston, that's going to swap around. We're going to look at superheat as our primary driver, and subcooling moves down here. Swap it back again to TXV, and it's going to move those around. But depending on your metering device type, that's what it's going to do. So what we do to use this feature is we start with a quick charge. It's going to ask us to confirm our selected refrigerant, in this case 410A, so that's good. To confirm our metering device type, we have it set for a TXV, so that's good. Is it adjustable? In this case, our metering device is non-adjustable, so we'll hit no on there. Confirm our subtooling target. Now it's going to always go to your default of 10. In this case here, we are at an 18-degree target, so we're going to go ahead and hit submit. And then our nominal airflow, we're set at 400 CFM a ton. If you wanted to change it, you just tap here. Gives you your 350, your 400, your 450. We'll leave it on 400 CFM per ton. Is there already refrigerant in the system, yes or no? Now in this case, I dumped some gas out of the refrigerant, so it's low on charge, but there is refrigerant in the system. So we're gonna hit yes, and it's gonna tell us to input the nameplate charge. Now, this system, when I hit enter here, it's got 84 ounces of refrigerant in there, but I could enter this in as pounds, so like 5.25 pounds, or 5 pounds, 2 ounces, or all in ounces, if I want to enter it. So however you want to enter it in, whether it's pounds and ounces, pounds or ounces only, you can enter it in those fields and hit submit. Verify your filters are clean, which ours are good. The blower's clean, we know it is. Condenser's clean, we know it is. Blower motor type, in this case we have a PSC and I have it set to medium speed. So this is going to tell us also whether we need to increase or decrease airflow as you're running the system. And then we're going to hit start the system, and it's going to wait for the system to stabilize. Now, a couple seconds here, the system will start back up. It just randomly decided to stop during this Facebook Live video, which is just wonderful. You can also enter your system information here. So this is, we'll change this to 1.5 tons on here. 410A, 400 CFM per ton, 13 to 16 SEER TXV. We have an oversized evaporator, but you can see our targets are in there, and there goes our system. So now it's going to wait for the system to stabilize. So it's looking at all these different variables here, and it's going to wait for the system to stabilize. And as it waits for it to stabilize, what it's going to do is monitor the stabilization of the supply air temp, which is effectively looking at temperature split. So what we're looking at is return air and the split. But we're looking at just the supply air temperature because it's a little bit smoother of a metric on there. We're watching our subcooling and we're watching our superheat to make sure that those are stable, and watching our liquid line, suction line temperature. So this is our stability algorithm that's running up on the top there. We tap on that, it'll tell us right now our temp split's not stable, and that's our primary driver for that right at this second. So as soon as this stabilizes here, it's gonna coach us along with what the next step is here. And it'll take a few minutes here to do that. So I had it up and running before. It wouldn't take quite so long if it was up and running, but obviously right now we got a high approach temperature, which means we got a low refrigerant charge, right? We got a low temperature split, which this will probably move closer into range, so the supplier temperature is too high coming out. Subcooling is really low on there, and our low pressure is low and our high pressure is low. So all those things are, again, indicators of low charge, but this will walk you through with what our next step is. Now, because this is so far away from our subcooling target, it's going to obviously tell us to add gas here once it stabilizes. And I apologize again because it took off a little slowly that we got stuck here for just a minute, but we're gonna tough it out and make it all work. A couple other things I want you to notice here. I did tie my refrigerant hose off here so that my tank, so as I'm adding gas here and moving this part of the hose, that I'm not influencing my scale on there. And I zeroed out my scale. I do have some recovered R410A in that tank, and I'm just adding it back in to the low side of the system here. And again, we're still waiting for that stabilization to occur. Our temp split's dropping into range here right now, and you know, things are moving. But one of the things, guys, you know, you don't want to do is you don't want to go too fast when you're charging a system. Obviously, we know this is a little bit low. I'm going to wait for it to give us the stabilization method. We know it's a little bit low, but it's going to wait till things are stable, because this is a heat pump. If it had an accumulator in it, when it shut off, what could happen is all the refrigerant could be sitting in the accumulator with really no heat to boil it out, especially if it's outside. So the refrigerant could take quite a while to get out of the accumulator and start to build up in the condenser. And so, you know, you just don't want to rush when you're charging a system on here, just because if you go too fast, you're going to end up overcharging the system. And on a heat pump that's critically charged, that can be a big mess, because, you know, then you're out in the wintertime and it's cold and you have this thing tripping on high pressure. So now that it's stable here, it's telling us to add 8 ounces to the suction line on the machine. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to throttle this in slowly on the scale. So, and whenever you're adding refrigerant in, you know, you want to take it in somewhat slow, so I'm flashing it. So I'm filling the valve on my hand here. I can feel the refrigerant changing state. All right, so we have about 8 ounces in the system, and we added that gas back in. Now we got to wait for the system to stabilize again. And again, we don't want to rush, because again, if we're dumping this in the accumulator, it's going to take a little while for that to get out. So we're watching the pressures, the temperatures, the superheat, subcooling, making sure everything is stable before we add in gas. What's cool with this is the closer you get, the faster it's going to go. Now you just saw it flash there, and a good rule of thumb is, and what was happening is the software thought it was stable for a second, then it went unstable again. A good rule of thumb is when a message is up for about 10 seconds, you're ready to roll and do what it says next. It does have times where you get what you call crossover, and crossover is just where it picks up that it's stable for a split second, but then it realizes it's not again. You can ignore the crossover messages on there. When it's up for 10 seconds or so, it's good to go. But you can see our approach dropped a little bit on there. Our high pressures come up a little bit. Our low pressure is coming up a little bit, and our subcooling, we're still probably bubbles in the sight glass here, so the next go around the bubbles will clear out, and we'll be in a better position on here. So now, again, add 8 ounces of refrigerant to the suction line, right? You can see that message is holding in here, so now we're good to go. So we'll add another 8 ounces. We'll take this up to a pound of gas going in. What's cool is this is the reason we're adding a pound in here is because this system is a 1.5 ton system. It's all based off of the size of the system and percentage of refrigerant charge that we want to add based upon how far it is off the target. So if this was a 10-ton system, we might be adding in 10 pounds of refrigerant or something, being this far off the target. So all the algorithms determine how much refrigerant we need to add based on how we're looking, how far we are off the target, and you know, as things start falling into line. So right now you can see our superheat, you know, we're up to 5.4 degrees of subcooling, so now we have a liquid seal on the TXV. So now we are getting a nice superheat. Pressures are coming into range. High pressure still on the low side. You want to tap on any one of these, see what the target is. We're looking for between 261 to 285, and right now our current is 256, so it is a little bit on the low side. But any one of these targets, it'll tell you what the design of that target is on there. Superheat, etc. So we're still waiting for that to stabilize. It'll stabilize pretty quickly here. Now the cool thing is you know, if you're experienced, you don't have to use this guided method. You can just use this screen as it is. If I want to add a little bit of gas in here, I'll go ahead and just to accelerate things, I'm going to add another 8 ounces of gas in here just to get a little closer in the range. I just happen to have the luxury of knowing how much gas I took out, so I know I'm not going to overcharge it here by putting another 8 ounces in. All right, so we'll just let that set there for a minute. And it's still in that stabilization, but now we're gonna approach a little closer here. And now you can see our high pressure's coming up into closer into range. Approach is looking good, superheat's looking good, and low pressure's looking good. Temperature split's looking good. That's dropping a little bit, meaning we're moving, you know, we're cooling a little bit better. And the only thing we are is a little bit off on the subcooling target. If we scroll back and look at our trend lines here, you can see every time I add a refrigerant, that drop in superheat. You want to make sure you're always maintaining some superheat. You know, I'm getting a little bit low here at 1.4, but we always want to have some superheat. And you can see each time subcooling was down, you know, at 0.6, 4.5, now it's up to 13, and our target's 18, but you can still see it's increasing. And this gradual increase is a reason that you don't want to charge too quickly. This is what we call creep. It's just creeping up very, very slowly, which is important when I get back to the other screen here in just a minute. So let this continue to stabilize for just a minute here. And not uncommon for you to get some hunting on the TXV when we're adding gas in there. That's what we're seeing right there, is the TXV is it's responding, not necessary. It's a reactive control. It reacts to what it sees on the outlet of the coil. So now you can see, instead of 8 ounces now we're getting close, so it's telling us to add it in an ounce at a time. So I'll go ahead and add it in another ounce here, just to take it up to 9.4. Overshot just a hair there. And now we're gonna hopefully move into range here on that. So now this is a creep charge check. And this is probably one of the coolest features on here. What will happen, again, as we talked about earlier, is once we get close to in range, is we are going to maybe slowly creep up in charge, especially if we have an accumulator on here. Now this one doesn't happen to have an accumulator, so I'm gonna tweak the charge a little bit at this point and just get it up a couple more degrees. And you'll notice that the creep charge check does not really change here. So I'll just take this up to about maybe 16 degrees or so. And you can see how small, I mean, I only added just another ounce of gas in here, and you can see how big of a change it's got on the subcooling at this point. And what this is going to do is, and it's going to run down, and I don't have to run the full 10 minutes here before we cut off this video here, but at the end of 10 minutes, it's going to make sure that the airflow is in the correct range. So you see that's getting in a dark green range now, and that the subcooling is in the correct range. This wide range here is plus or minus 3, so anywhere in the green is acceptable. In the center here is plus or minus 1. Some manufacturers require plus or minus 1 degree of subcooling. Some allow you plus or minus 3. So that's how we have that set up in there. But you can see how everything's falling in the right ranges now. High pressure, approach, superheat. And what's going to happen here is after 8 minutes, this is going to give us a thumbs up that everything's good. And then we can save this in the report. So very, very handy feature in measureQuick. And this is designed for, you know, I mean, believe it or not, even as experienced as I am, I love this screen. I've been using it for about a week now, and I almost don't even look at the regular measureQuick screens anymore, because I know if I get all this stuff right, everything else is going to fall into range here. I'll just show you here real quick here. If we go scroll through the other screens here, you know, you can see our pressures are are pretty close to in range. Superheat, subcooling's in range. Approach, we're not measuring discharge line temp, but if we measured that, that would be in range. Return air dry bulb's low, but that's a function of the load, right? It's cool in the shop here. It's 67 with a low wet bulb. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just just because the conditions are cool in here. Supply though, spot on, right? Airflow, spot on. Change in enthalpy's low, but it's because we're not doing any dehumidification in here. Again, it's cool to know that, but if you're a technician that doesn't have a lot of training on here, you might think that that's a huge problem. So you can see here we're doing almost 100% of our sensible performance. We'll go look here. We're doing 97% of our sensible, but we're doing no latent cooling on here. In fact, we're seeing a little bit of a negative latent, almost like we're evaporating. That's probably just a small amount of air in the probes we're seeing there. But you know, it takes away some of that mystery, because when I look at this screen and I go back here, you know, I know that everything's in range and everything looks good. And in 7 minutes, it's going to tell me that the system's charged right and we're good to go. But anyway, I just wanted to take a few minutes and show you this mode, maybe get some feedback and comments from you. We'll probably push it out in the next day or so, if not by the end of the day today. But it's, I think, really a game changer for using measureQuick, and it makes it just really, really easy to use. And you know, when you walk away, you're going to know your charge and your airflow are spot on, exactly like you want them to. So hey, thanks a lot for watching, and have a happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for all your support over the year. And you guys are great. Couldn't do it without you.